trucking on, and I'm trucking on. Move her on down the line, another town will do me fine. I'm trucking on, I'm trucking on.
Ryan Keathley, welcome to Truckin' On.
Man, I am so excited to be here with the backdrop of Telluride, Colorado.
That's right. We're here for the second time this week of June in Telluride, Colorado. And last year, we started talking about the podcast, and we've known each other for 10 years. But
right.
You just told me last year when we were here for the Link logistics trip that you listen to the podcast.
I'm a fan.
I love hearing that.
I'm a fan.
I am glad some people listen and care. I just told you my college roommate just recently did the podcast, and he texted me after it, and he's like, "Have you had any feedback on our episode?" Actually, no one ever gives me feedback on any episodes, but it will get casually. The podcast gets casually mentioned to me all the time, in conversation, but it's not like I have a fan base or something of people
right.
Emailing wow, I loved that point you guys made about this.
Right.
That rarely occurs. So I love the love, man.
Well, the love is you had Mark Grabo on, and he kind of he was pretty real, right? And I sent him a note immediately, and I was like, man, this is awesome. Just good for you, just being authentic, being yourself. And I think I sent Nathan Denton a note, which was a totally different podcast. It's just Nathan being Nathan.
The Lee boys.
The Lee guys. Anyway,
so great.
That's maybe if that's any way of saying, I should probably tell you that I enjoy them, but I send those guys notes if they're on, that was awesome, which means it resonates, I think, with people. Yeah,
man, that's awesome to hear. And I met you around 10 years ago doing the Marine Harvest deal.
Right.
And you were with GLP.
That's right.
Georgia was the leasing, the asset manager locally, and
That's
then
right.
you were kind of the regional person.
Yeah.
And we got that awesome deal done. And that was, that's a crazy time in my career, because it's right when my career really began. That's one of these deals I think of as it was a jumping point, really? As a broker, you just kind of have some of those deals and go get a legit big, manufacturing deal, basically 10-year lease done.
Yeah.
And it just, my daughter was born the year before.
Oh,
and
wow.
Right before we did that deal.
Yeah.
And money was needed.
Yeah, that was an important deal.
And then in brokerage, I found, making that first, that big to jump. And I always was closing deals, but it was just a grind. And a deal like that really catapulted me. And just then it gives you confidence. And when you have that confidence, it goes a long way.
Yeah. And you were with the same firm then, right? Am I wrong?
I was with Colliers
you
the
already
whole
made
time.
It to Colliers. By way of Robert Lynn, do I have that right or no?
I made it to Colliers, Robert Lynn, Cushman and Wakefield, Transwestern.
Okay.
So I had a really kind of a rocky start to figuring out what is my path in this profession of industrial real estate. And first I started doing Brook Hollow, at Robert Lynn.
Yeah.
Then I went to Cushman, and it was more doing corporate office work.
Okay.
So I kind of went over to the office side a little bit.
Yeah.
With a guy named Mike Wyatt, who's a great guy, recently passed away.
Oh boy.
And then I went to Transwestern, and they just let me do my own thing. And that's when I figured out I want to do this multi-market tenant rep. And then I started doing that. And then I was using Colliers brokers all over the country. Mm-hmm. So jumped to Colliers almost 14 years ago.
Okay. Wow.
So
how much of your business is in Dallas now versus that multi-market?
Probably 20 to 30%, I would say.
In Dallas?
Yeah, it depends on the year. Yeah. Probably more than any other city, but not that much. We transact in almost every major market in North America every year. So we're working deals, it seems, every year in like the big markets.
Yeah.
I mean, like the NFL cities basically. So
Yeah.
we're doing that. And yeah, man, but we had a good time doing that deal, and then like kind of reunited on this Link trip last year, and really enjoyed that. We got matching Lucchese vests. I'm gonna have to put a picture of it somewhere on Instagram or something, or LinkedIn. But let's get rolling.
Yeah.
You know the drill. I like to start ages 12 to 22.
Right.
And you were kind of building this up last night. It's like, don't tell me now. Tell me tomorrow.
Well, we had dinner last night. I sat next to one another, and I told you I wouldn't tell you, but I told you that that I think it's such a great question. I think it's a great, brilliant question. I think if someone hasn't really thought about what happened to them significantly at that age, they, some introspection a little bit later in life, really, if you're honest, there's some really important things that do happen, and whatever, good or bad, they just sort of set your foundation for how you think, how you operate, how you think about money, how you think about people. So much of just those early elements. The first time you heard certain songs when you were in that age, and they're probably still your favorite songs.
I still listen to them.
Totally.
Yeah. My playlist is just like all that era.
Totally. Like I listen to a lot of music, but like my favorite songs were, I guarantee you, came out sort of in that window. So.
And it might be AC/DC Back in Black, but I discovered that when I was like a freshman in high school, So
well said.
right in the middle of that.
Well said. Yeah. That song's old, but you learn it then, and then it's your song from that era. So probably like some of your guests, I'll rewind the tape a tad. But just to set the foundation, had a pretty interesting childhood, and I won't get to the takeaways. I'll get you through the process, but kind of earliest childhood memory I've told a few people this, not many. Sadly, was my parents getting a divorce, and the memory was my folks literally having a family meeting, and us walking with 3 kids. I'm the youngest of 3, older brother, sister just a little bit older than me, and myself. Family meeting. We go back to my brother's room, and I literally asked my brother, who's 6 years older than me, what does that mean? Where they're getting a divorce? Like, what is that? I'm 5 or 6. Like, I don't understand. I just didn't have the context for it. So things kind of push on from there. Really kind of a raw edge to that was both parents fought for custody, like really hard. I think both parents sort of alleged the other was not fit for parenting.
Oh gosh.
They were both right. So I told you this would be a little raw, but what ended up happening was we kind of going back and forth to the courthouse. It's really pretty awful. Parents were just really at each other's throats.
Where are you living through this time?
I grew up in Nassau Bay, Texas, which is directly across the street, the neighborhood subdivision across the street from NASA, Johnson Space Center, down south of Houston.
Yeah.
And but the reality is the sort of way that worked was the judge almost always grants custody to the mom and sort of makes the dad pay, right? That's just sort of how it works. Well, he didn't, and he decided that my brother was older. He was old enough to sort of choose what he wanted to do, and he elected to live with my dad. He was, I don't know, like I said, 12 or so, 11 or 12 when that happened, and could almost see high school, could see his buddies, could see his, a little bit of his future, and sort of did that. My sister and I were sort of thrown into this, let's figure out what to do with them. And the judge decides we should live 1 year with one parent, 1 school year, and then next year with the other parent. And we flip-flop back and forth from first kindergarten to, it gets a little different. I'll take you through it, middle school, but through middle school. And we literally go back and forth. Now,
different schools or the same school?
That's the wild part. Totally different schools.
Oh my gosh.
Per a divorce decree, you generally have to live in a generally same area, whatever. So I'm certain that was written somewhere. But there were 2 totally different school districts, 2 totally different groups of friends, 2 totally different like sports, little league teams, totally different, zoned areas. And so that was kind of wild. It created a couple of things, which was like sister and I got real close. And also just kind of looking backwards, you became pretty durable in a sense from like, you know, she's still not mobile. She lives in Houston, but she can still up and kind of go somewhere and be somewhere for a while and just have no problem with it. I would say, she may not agree, but that was part of that. She just was conditioned to sort of be able to adjust. Yeah. We moved professionally in my corporate career quite a bit, 4 times in 11 years. And I'm confident, you know, for certain that's because I was sort of conditioned to be able to just, hey, what's next year? Let's go. Let's go do something different. So that was probably the good.
In meeting new people, or like
Totally.
just being comfortable with around strangers, kind of. I would assume that's a positive that came from that.
Wholly. I mean, brand new school, you know, each year you'd go back to a similar group of friends, but, you know, things would change in between those time periods. So, yeah, being kind of not a stranger in a room.
That's such a weird way to grow up, because you're like, oh, I remember you from 2 years ago.
Really?
Oh, see you in 2 years.
Yeah, kind of wild. And as you get a little bit older, you go see some of your buddies. You'd still, hey, let's go to the movies, or, you know, whatever a younger person wants to do with their free time. But yeah, awkward. I mean, like really sort of unique, at least, right? Not normal. And I think what was, well, so we do that. We roll with it. Sports is a big part of my sister's life. Sports is a big part of my brother's life, a big part of my life. And we were all pretty good, you know, whatever, high school age sports. I mean, you know, junior high and grade school sports, everybody thinks they're great, but we were okay. So we do that. We're back and forth. At some point, and I don't remember it all, but at some point it's like, we're not going to do this anymore. I forget why. We end up going back to court. There's sort of a whole moment, and the judge is sort of like, all right, you guys can decide what you want to do. And sort of surprising to probably ourselves and others, we're like, we're gonna live with my dad. And it was the school district that we kind of really wanted to be in. It's the high school my brother had gone to. It was probably the more core group of friends that we really had. And my mother, in fact, moves to Denver sort of right on the heels of all that, sort of based on our decisions, I guess, moves to Denver with her husband. And so we're off and we're living with my dad. And what I will tell you and share with you the podcast was like, that was a very difficult decision in the context of living with that person. There's a reason parents get divorced. There's a reason things happen. It was a family did not think that was the right decision. Friends even thought that was a sort of unwise decision, but we do it. And so we moved back in with him. It was our childhood home, his house we knew. And the sad part about all of it was he's on his 3rd of 3 wives. And he's just self-destructing, and it's just really hard to watch.
With like alcohol or?
Man, just lots of things. You know, no one, be it the car that cut him off on the highway or a past business associate or of those 3 wives, there were brothers and sisters. No one escaped his rage is the facts.
Yeah.
And so it was just hard to watch. And you know, he was in real estate, so late 80s real estate.
Yeah.
Not a good place to be in Texas. I mean, it was virtually a depression of sorts from an economic cycle. And so he went through all of that.
What was he doing?
His business had always been like originating just mortgages, loans for residential.
Yeah, that was like a brutal time. I would assume.
Right, ghost town. He ended up more years than not. Or more chunk of his career than not. He worked for some of the bigger home builders, so he was sort of on their payroll. But you buy a new home, new tract home, he'd go see the finance guy. You know, he was that guy. And so, you know, I'm giving him a little grace, but that was a tough period to raise a family in, tough period to sort of endure. I think, well, he and my mother both all 3 of us were born before he was 25. So they had to sort of deal with all that, which is just, you know, learning yourself in the middle of trying to raise 3 kids. So they had some tough, and that precursor to the divorce. But afterwards, we end up moving in there, living there. And I'll just say enduring it. And at some point, well, I remember it well, my sister she's 1 grade older than me, and we just decided we're done. Like, we can't be here. We cannot be here. So, crazy, on her 18th birthday, her senior year of high school, a couple weeks before homecoming, of which she's on the court, homecoming court, we leave. And we leave. We move out. We sort of take off. And my brother had already kind of set up himself in business and his life. And so we move in with him into a 1-bedroom apartment on the Gulf Freeway, a couple exits up from our, where we lived. And it's pretty bizarre.
What grade were you in?
I'm a junior in high school.
And you're living in a 1-bedroom apartment with your brother
and my sister.
Mom's in Denver. Dad, you're like, see you later.
Later.
Yeah.
See ya.
What did he say when you're like, see you later? Did you just sneak out?
It was like he went to work and we bolted.
Yeah.
Like I'm giving you the thumbnail sketch here, but you wouldn't have challenged that situation. You wouldn't have announced that situation. You just wouldn't have.
You roll.
You go.
Yeah.
So we book on her 18th birthday, which was pretty tumultuous. We move in my brother. I'll put it this way, and I'll give you a glimpse for what I'm not saying, but I'll give you this glimpse. So she's on the homecoming court. She's head cheerleader. She's really
she has those Keathley good looks, I would assume.
She does, and but I'll put it this way. So she's going to be on the homecoming court. We obviously quickly, as a family, have to decide who's going to walk her down on the football field, because it's not going to be my dad, and my brother does. Naturally, he's older, but Ward, we made sure that the school district, the school knew. And even the sheriff's department knew that this was going to happen, and that there might be a situation.
Rage.
There might be rage. And so, dude, they had someone stationed up in the press box. Like,
my God.
Yeah, that's the glimpse into kind of what we were all dealing with. So, and I'm 17. I'll be honest, I'm not processing all of this. Okay, but I'm able to now. But so she wins homecoming. Her brothers walked her down the court, and that's the backdrop of it all. To a lot of our friends, they know what's going on. To a lot of other families and people in the community, they have no idea what's going on, right? So fast forward, one of my good buddies who's a couple grades older, he does not. I see him over Christmas, and he does not make the proverbial Mendoza line at Texas A&M his fall freshman year.
Yeah.
So he's flunking out, and he's going to move back to Houston. And I see him, and I let him know kind of what's going on. He's like, "Bro, let's just move in with me. I'm going to get an apartment. My parents, they don't want me to get back to school. They're not going to pay for school. I'm going to work. We'll get an apartment. They'll help me pay for school, and you guys can move in." So my sister and I move in with this buddy into a complete dump of an apartment complex. Just dump, bad part of town. And that's how she finishes her senior year, and I finished my junior year. She ends up graduating as you would. She goes to Denver, go kind of live with or near mom. I think it was more like near mom, and she's going to go to college in Colorado. In the middle of this, in that same Christmas time frame, I mentioned sports before, and I hadn't talked much about it. I end up having to quit. I'm playing basketball. That's the season, but I end up having to quit basketball because I've got to pay for stuff now. I've got to find money for an apartment. He's not really making me pay rent, but I'm not just going to completely schmooze off of him. And I need spending money. I need money. So I quit basketball. I work all Christmas and into the second semester, high school, second part of high school.
What'd you do?
Well, the Christmas gig was always to work at a Christmas tree lot.
Yeah.
You make pretty good tips. You know, you're working every night and weekends.
That's such a high schooler job.
I have no skills, right? Like zero skills. And I'm not really going to work retail. Like, that's just not going to happen. So I do that, and then baseball season starts to roll around, and all my baseball buddies are like, "Hey man, we think we've got something going on this year. We think we've got a squad, and our high school rather was good at baseball. This is Clear Creek High School.
Okay.
And they're like, we're gonna get real serious, which means they're not gonna drink like the whole semester.
Right. We're not drinking this year.
We're not drinking. We're pretty good. And I don't know how you feel about birth order, but I'm a big fan. I'm a younger brother, obviously, as advertised, and then 4 or 5 of the guys on the team are all younger brothers, and all of our brothers were pretty good friends back in high school, or to some degree or another, very close to one another, and they all played baseball. And so you kind of look around, you're like, man, this team's pretty loaded, and they're a bunch of younger brothers who will just run through a brick wall because they're younger brothers. They're stupid. They don't know any better. And I'm going along here in the paint on this one, but we roll, and we are killers. Those guys are killers. I'm a junior on a senior loaded team, so I'm not even playing that much, but these guys are legit. And we go not undefeated or anything, but like get through district, win our district. And this is a 5A high school. Today they have 6A. They didn't back then.
Yeah,
so
the biggest in Texas back then.
This was the biggest. And we get through our by-district rival, which is brutal. We never can beat them. We beat them. We of course keep going. We win area, and we're going to Austin. We're going to Dishfalk, which is where they used to play. Where UT plays their home games.
Is
now.
it a state tournament or is it?
Yeah, we're in the Final Four.
Yeah,
and we're going to state with this, just this killer group of baseball guys, and it's Fort Worth, Keller. Let's see, Klein Oak, San Antonio Clark, and Clear Creek. And we hadn't been to state to save our lives. Some of those teams maybe
they go like all the time.
I mean, yeah, some of these guys have legit programs. Keller's the team to beat that year. I feel like they'd lost a game or two only. Somehow Klein Oak beats them. We beat San Antonio Clark in the state semis, and so we got to go play Klein Oak, and we beat Klein Oak. And it's just pretty wild, dude. I'm living in a fucking 2-bedroom apartment with my buddy, and we win state. Like, it was pretty wild. It was super duper cool. Really high moment of my life. And I'll give you a glimpse again. So we win the state semifinal game. Go ahead.
Do you see your dad during this time?
Yeah, that's where I'm headed.
Yeah. Okay.
And the answer is no. But he's a proud dad. Your
son's won this 5A state championship,
and he was the coach for a long time. Like he deserves some of that credit, and he comes to the state championship game. Like, why? Of course you would. I don't know that he's coming. I don't, know we're not talking. And dude, we're getting on the bus. The buses are pulled up underneath Dishfalk Field to go back to the hotel after we won the first game. And my family gets into a freaking brawl.
No.
Yeah, literally. I mean, it's just, at the time it felt like inappropriate, but not even awkward. It was just, that's my family. Like,
you're used to it.
Yeah, like this is just how it's going to go. Someone's going to say something stupid, and they did, and punches were thrown, and charges were filed. It was complete chaos, disaster. So that was childhood.
Dude.
So fast forward.
You could have definitely taken 2 paths out of that experience, right?
Dude,
and I never would have guessed it knowing you.
Right.
And you're very just even keeled and laid back and friendly and hard worker, like all of these things. And I guess that's what happened. Sometimes you see your parents and you want to be the same, or you want to be totally opposite, or I guess
Bingo.
somewhere in between.
Bingo. That's right, and I've told that story to a few guys, like in a men's group Bible study. Like I've really never told that story. No one, I don't think, except for kids I grew up with, know that about me. So people that'll listen to your pod might call me and be like, "Wow, that was wild."
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, well, you have a way of bringing out some real authenticity to people. I think you're cool and even natured self. So thanks for being that guy.
Try to be.
Yeah.
Thank you. So then, did you keep playing baseball? What did you do for college?
Great question. So
I guess you went to senior year.
So we're rolling into senior year. That was just junior year of high school, which is just nuts. Rolling into senior year, same coach, totally different team. Graduated a lot of kids. We still have a couple guys on the team that were there, and our coach says, and he knows we're going to struggle, from the year's standpoint, talent standpoint, and he tells us, me and some of the other seniors, he's like, hey, listen, the pro teams come to town from time to time, and they'll have tryouts, professional tryouts at a university, and you should go. And we're like, what? He goes, no, you're not going to get drafted. But what happens is a lot of coaches, college coaches, will show up there, and they'll potentially evaluate you and at least get to see it. And you didn't have, these baseball teams really just didn't have much of a recruiting budget back then. And unless you were a superstar and in the paper every day, it was hard to get noticed. So
it's like a combine of sorts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we go to the Cincinnati Reds tryout.
What year did you graduate high school?
So 92.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm 96, so you're a little ahead of me. Yeah.
Okay. So we go to the Cincinnati Reds tryout, University of Houston, downtown, and just, it's kind of a funny story. I'll try and take you through it quickly, but I'm playing well. I obviously we had a great team, but it's a tryout. I mean, you're a number. Like, you better stand out. And there's, I don't know, 300 kids here at least. From some of which who are already out of college. It's a pro tryout, or all the way down to, I think you had to be a senior in high school. And dude, God just steps in, dude. I mean, he just takes my ground balls, takes my fly balls, steps in the batting cages. You hit on the field, and you're going to run the bases for time and all these things. And I remember the last thing you do is you kind of go hop back in the batting cage. There's a couple coaches, clipboards, and all their dark sunglasses.
When you said God took over, did it mean that you were crushing it, or you were
just playing well?
Yeah, okay. Because God can take over one way or the other. Just wanted to make sure. That's awesome.
And I remember one coach in particular. He's looking over his mirrored rim sunglasses. Young man, what's your name? I tell him my name and my high school and all the things. And he tells me his name, and he tells me where he's at as a college coach, and that was it. Takes my number, takes my information. That's it. We drive back to South Houston and play the rest of our year, which is not notable. I mean, I think we won as many games our senior year as we lost my junior year. So, I mean, we're not super good. And so my plan fully, my mom has moved to Colorado, as mentioned, and my plan fully is to go to Colorado State University for 1 year. I'm going to go enroll in that school. I'm going to then be a ski bum because I just know guys that maybe have done that. I'm going to get up there. At least that'll get me there. I'll enroll in college, which is kind of like that country song. Like, that's just what everybody did. That's what you said you're supposed to do. I don't have money to pay for it. My mom's literally not in a position to pay for it. But I'm rolling up there, and my goal is to take 2 semesters, 1 year, and then just that's it. And I'm nearly enrolled in the Colorado State University. I've already got the course catalog. I've been accepted, obviously, which isn't saying much. Apologies to any Rams fans out there, but
I almost went to Colorado State.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
I got invited to walk on there for football.
Really?
And I really wanted to do the same thing. I always wanted to be a ski bum.
Yeah.
And I never did it, unfortunately. But yeah, I didn't go there. And but it was at the very top of my list. Yeah, I was just going to say, too, my football combine junior year, I was getting recruited by all these colleges, and I played at a great year my junior year.
Yeah.
And the day before the combine, our high school coaches had us max out on weights, including power clean. And I you can just imagine me being a junior in high school trying to max out on power clean, and I just ripped my shoulder.
Did you really?
Yeah. And so the combine was the next day. So God stepped in for me, and I could bench press 225 like 2 times, and I could do it 2 days before or something like that. And just like, it just all, because I thought I would go play like at a Colorado State or a D1 school. And then I kind of got tapered off to the Ivy Leagues, which it's a God thing too, like it all worked out.
Turned out okay.
So
So I'm rolling to Colorado State. I've even got a roommate. I'm looking at the course catalog and to figure out what I'm going to study. I don't even know what I'm going to study. And it's June or it's late June. It's about right now, late June, early July, which you mean you're rolling out in August. And I get a phone call at my apartment, and we had a phone. Some of the younger folks may be listening. We had a phone, a landline, and we had an answering machine, which, by the way, had no reference to who you were calling. It was my roommate put on there like lines from Airplane, the movie.
That was like a thing to do. Leave ridiculous answering machine messages all through high school.
Thankfully, I'm home when the coach calls and he asks for me, and I was like, "You're talking to him?" And he says, "I'm Joe Almaraz." It's the same coach that I remembered seeing at this tryout. And he says, me and my staff we were at Howard Junior College last year. We have just been asked, and we're starting a new program at Northeast Texas Community College, which is in Mount Pleasant, Texas, about 2-something hours east of Dallas. We're starting a brand new program, and we need players. Would you be interested in playing? And I'm like, I mean, are you kidding? Like, I don't actually immediately say 100% yes, and he kind of carries through his spiel.
Very Ryan Keathley thing to do. Yeah. Tell me more about this, please.
Let me snow him a little bit. He says, so what I can tell you is we can offer you room and board, tuition, and books, and I'm just going to apologize ahead of time. We cannot pay for your meal plan. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm like, I have I don't say any of this, but I'm like, I have no prospects. I have no plan. And you just handed me a college scholarship to play. Sorry, where was it again?
I'm in.
Done. Sold. So I go play 2 years at a junior college in Mount Pleasant, Texas. And let me just pause and rewind the tape and say something very, 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 very important. Because that's all the second most important thing that happened to me at that age. The very most important thing that happened to me at age of 15, I met my wife.
Wow.
Of now, next month, 29 years.
Wow.
High school sweethearts. She's 2 grades older. I'm a freshman when we meet. She's a junior. We date rather my freshman and sophomore year. She graduates. I'm going to be a junior. It's that same crazy year that
she's there with you through all of that.
She's there through the lead up of all of that. She knows what's going on. She knows what it is and why. She graduates, and I'm still back at high school, and I kind of just am like, I don't know if that's the best thing for us to do. You be down the road, and I'm here. And so we ended up not dating my junior and senior year, which was also kind of a God thing because it didn't make her go through all of that.
Yeah.
Fast forward back to Northeast Texas Community College in Mount Pleasant, Texas, which literally has a smaller enrollment than my high school. And I think I'm more mature. I'm a little bit, I'm a guy. I'm a little bit looking around going, this might not be the best student body to attempt to date, but I'm really ready to move, get back into relationship with her. And so I'm calling her, I'm begging her to come see me. I think I even tell her we're going to go to Houston and play a tournament down there, and please come see me. Also, back to answering machines. She has an answering machine, and I learned later that several of the messages I'd called and left her roommates were not giving to her, because I was kind of a bad guy during some of those years during the high school when we dated, and they were protecting her. And
so you were a bit of a troublemaker in high school, and
a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
I had zero supervision from age 17 to 18, zero.
I can't imagine.
Which was also good that she didn't witness all that. So, but I get up there and I'm really begging, and I'm really ready to move on. And so finally, I don't remember how it worked out, but she comes to a game, or the sparks relit, and kind of literally rest is history. So, I'm still not 22, by the way.
Were you partying during high school then? So did you party when you got to junior college?
Fair question. Fair question. So I had 2 rules in high school, myself, self-imposed, no drugs, which in those days would have looked like pot or X or acid, or that's what my people were doing. No one was doing any crazy heavy stuff.
Like weed was the only drug I ever even heard about in high school. There was other stuff going on, but not with anyone I knew.
Yep. It was available and it was there, and I was just a hard no. Like, that's just not. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
We drank. And someone told me when we graduated high school, if you put a penny in a jar, big jar, for every beer you drink in college, you'll never take them out for every beer you drink after college. It's just college, right? 4 years party scene. And I'm like,
I broke that rule.
I'm like, that jar would have been completely overrun in high school. Like,
you were like high school to college kind of. Like,
I drank way more in high school than I ever did the rest of my life. Like,
yeah.
But we also had a separate rule, which was stupid, but funny. Because I'd get sick, you'd get run down, you run your body down. So I never drank more than 3 days in a row. That was also my thing. Like, I'm just never. So if that's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you're taking off Sunday. If that's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, well, then you're laying off the weekend. It's just a weird there's even honor among thieves, Ward.
When I first started thinking that, I might have a drinking problem, I was going to a therapist, and he told me, like, why don't you try to just drink 4 nights a week and see if you can do that? And I was 37, by the way. And I did it for 1 week. Yeah. And then the next week, and he was just kind of checking me. And the next week I was like, well, I had this thing and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And like, dude, that was like a real moment of truth for me. Like, I can't.
Like, who's in control?
4 nights a week's a lot. Like, you can't do that.
Most of them.
Come on. Yeah.
That's a majority of them. So yeah, the answer is we were drinking, and then college rolls around, and oddly we were in a dry county, so you had to drive pretty far to get a beer. And we just go to Louisiana because you're 18.
Yeah.
If you're 18, you could drink in Louisiana, and so we'd roll out there. Or make the mistake of a coach saying, hey, we're going to go play a tournament in Louisiana. You guys can leave and go with your friends or girlfriends or family after the game and not get back on the school bus or the team bus. And that was
but it's kind of like special occasions. Okay.
So let me get out of college. Let me graduate. So I'm not good enough to play anymore. I've played 2 years. I've played well beyond my skills and abilities. I have a professor that's taken a little bit of a liking to me, an econ professor. I like him a lot. I respect him immensely, sort of gravitating towards business studies. And he's like, hey, I think I can get you a scholarship, academic, to University of Texas, Tyler, UT Tyler, which isn't far away. I mean,
right.
I'm in East Texas. And that's his stomping ground. And I'm like, okay, like, great, because I hadn't thought 5 minutes about school yet. I mean, I'm starting to kind of really think about academics and starting to like apply myself, but I haven't really thought about what's next. And I call my brother, kind of the only father figure in my world, and I call him out. I'm like, hey man, I think this guy might maybe be able to give me some academic money towards finishing a 4-year degree at UT Tyler. And he just kind of stops cold and he's like, no, if you're going to a UT, you're going to the UT, you're going to Austin. And I'm like, it just hadn't really occurred to me. Like, I'm like, okay. And he'd gone to UT. Sadly, he didn't finish, but he knew the drill. He knew he understood the finances of it. He understood it all. And he just kind of was like, there's just a couple times in your life where someone just says, no, don't do that. Do this. I didn't ask any questions. And so that's what I did. I'm like, well, then great.
Wow.
And so I called went and met with that econ professor. I'm like, hey, love your spirit. Can you help me get into UT's business school? And he's like, 100%. Like, I'll get you into UT business school. Like, and I know I wrote the essay, but like, dude, he paid the fee I know he paid like the application fee for me. And I think he even sent the letter off and it came back to him. I remember him walking it back to my dorm one day and he's like, you got in.
Dude. Were you just overcome with gratitude?
I mean, I'm a college-age baseball player, so I'm probably thinking I'm great, but no, yes.
I'd be so pumped though. Like, just like, yeah, you're just like fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah. I mean, I was like, it was such a, and everyone.
I'm going to UT Austin. Like, how did this even happen?
And got right into the business school, which is like just really still, it's way more difficult probably now than it once was. But, and then it's just kind of wild. Things kind of start to just click in. You know, two of my best buddies from my dad's house when we grew up, like what I call home. One of them had was on a full ride to UNT for basketball, and one of them lived 2 doors down from me, and he had gone to what they call Texas State, but it was Southwest Texas State now, or then
San Marcos.
They're all like, we're going to transfer into UT. Let's room together. And I'm like, dude, we are getting the band back together. Like, let's do this. And so we all get an apartment in West Campus, and I get real focused on school. I got to take out a loan, and I've got 2 years to finish 2 years of school, which sounds silly in this day and age. That's what kids do. But I had not $1 coming to me from anyone, so I had to get serious about school, and I lock in. I make Dean's List as soon as I get there. I'd made Dean's List my sophomore year at the junior college. I just sort of realized I better get my shit together or I'm going to be a ski bum. And I didn't think that all of a sudden seemed so cool. So get to UT Austin, really focused on academics. My wife, not yet wife, girlfriend's graduated from University of Houston. I lived the 1 year with my buddies. She moves to Austin, and she's already taken a job. She'd worked all the way through high school and college for a restaurant, the Papa's restaurant company. She worked put herself through high school or through college, and she transfers up to Austin to the Papacitos to work, and she puts me through school. She finishes,
Wow.
Yeah, helps me with my senior year. So we live together, live in sin. Don't do it, kids. But we had no other choices, right? So we finish. I finally tell her at some point what day and time period I'm going to graduate in. And not much of the internet back then. She goes and finds I don't know how she finds it. She does some research, and she comes back out of the 1-bedroom apartment. I'm in the front room or something, and she says, "All right, I got the day we're getting married." And we talked about where, and we talked about how, and so, dude, I graduate. So also, I'm interviewing with every company that will look at me, right? And UT Business School has a great career services office, and the schools come through, the businesses come through, post, an interview, a job description. And I mean, I'm become like a professional interviewer. Like, I'm taking anything that'll look remotely cool. And there's a company that comes through it's based in Denver, Colorado.
Wow.
And I take the interview, and I get the job. And it wasn't named that at the time. It was called Security Capital Industrial Trust. But the company's Prologis. And like I said, things just started to click in. And I started the story a little bit backwards, but she goes and figured out what day I'm supposed to start at the company, what day I'm going to graduate, and how we're going to get married between those two moments. And this was a 3-week span. We had no money. We weren't taking a big trip. We weren't taking a big honeymoon. It just wasn't going to happen that way. So we do all of those things. And I interview with this company, which I remembered. I heard later I'm going to interview for an analyst position in their development group, all based in Denver. And the young guys that interviewed me like me, I remember them when I started afterwards. They're like, "You're married?" Because I wasn't married when I interviewed with them. They're all pissed at me. Like, "We thought we were hiring a single guy. You're a married guy now?" They were sort of all bummed out about it. But we moved to Colorado, and
I got to go back to your wedding.
Yeah.
What does your wedding look like? Okay. I mean, with your family.
Yeah, great question. So I had at least some decency, and I asked her father, of course, if I can marry his daughter. He says yes, and he gives me a good but modest sum of money and says, here's what I've got. Here's what, and I'm super thankful. We don't tell her mother. We don't tell. Of course, we don't tell my dad. Hadn't spoken to him at this point probably 5 or 6 years. But I know I didn't tell my mom. I think she told her sister, and I told my brother. And I said we're gonna go to Catalina Island off the coast of California, and we're gonna elope. And we just. In this case, I'm the third of three. She's the fourth of four. We've actually kind of seen our share of weddings and the whole entourage and the whole hoopla and all the planning and all the logistics. I need to graduate. I need to start this job in Denver, Colorado on whatever date. And we're going to get married between then and now. I'm like, we're not doing this. We're not planning this whole thing. So we get married and we go to a payphone at the hotel and we call her mother. Old man knew, but he didn't know exactly when or how or why.
It was just the two of you there, though.
Yeah, just the two of us. And
that's a beautiful thing in my mind.
So cool.
I think that's so great.
I've told a lot of young people, if you have means, take your parents' money and go buy something worthwhile, be it, and not perishable. I mean, invest it or buy a house.
Go buy Prologis stock.
Go buy NVIDIA. And don't waste it on, whatever, on $25,000, $50,000, $100,000. These people pay on a wedding. I think it's nonsense. Dude, and
that is great advice. I think that's a brilliant advice. I had like such the opposite story of you, like all the way through. I didn't drink in high school.
Really?
Just after, until I had to go to rehab when I was almost 40. And then, my parents were fantastic and just like we lived really comfortably, and they paid for me to go to college and all of that. Yeah. And when I got out, I was like I was more serious in high school about playing football. And then when that kind of ended, I got serious about playing in a band, but it was also about partying. Yeah. And I wanted to be the ski bum. It turned into, I'm going to be a rock star and play bars and tour around the world. And I didn't care about money. Yeah. 'Cause I'd always had financial security growing up.
Yeah, yeah.
And I almost like resented it at times. I think I went deep to the other side where I'm working in fast food restaurants and living without electricity and and living that life for many years. But then I got into corporate real estate, got married, and we had just like a monster wedding. And yeah. And I was also had the personality at that time that if I took that money, it would not have been getting invested wisely either. So maybe it was, in my case, probably best used on the wedding. It was a good memory, but in general, I think that's great advice.
Yeah. I thought, I've grown to learn that I hurt people in that moment. I hurt her mother. I mean, she didn't, and father even to some degree. I think dads care a little bit less, but he's a fine human being, and they didn't deserve that, not seeing their daughter get married, but she was the fourth of four, and they'd seen their share of other weddings. So I don't know. I'm still rationalizing it.
Yeah, you're good. I forgive you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So we get married, we start our life in Denver, and kind of literally the rest is history. I mean, I could sort of walk you through the progression through professional career, but I feel like that went way more linearly. That went way more in a familiar setting that to most of us, and I kind of just wanted to share with you the lead up to that
utter chaos that led up to it. Because I think if anyone knows you professionally, they would never suspect that. Never. I would have thought you were just straight A student, right, like almost a nerd all the way through high school, like right, always had your shit together, and then you just exude that. So really interesting, and I love just the story behind it, that like all of these amazing kind of opportunities that came out of thin air and people that came in to help you that didn't have to help you. And then you also making the decision, like, I'm going to take ownership of my life and do something. I'm going to live in a responsible manner and like be a man at a young age that a lot of kids don't have that. This junior in college, like, I'm going to go be on the dean's list at UT after kind of being on the, on the dark side a little bit. That's amazing, dude.
Thanks, man.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Inspiring. And then you're working with Prologis, just amazing company.
Great.
And then did you stay there for a long time?
Yeah. There was, so it was a bit of a merry-go-round in a good way, but so I hire on into the, like I said, analyst role. A lot of the DNA from the people at Prologis were trained at the altar of Trammell Crow. A lot of the what they called market officers, were sort of either ex-Crow partners or Crow descendants, as so many real estate companies are right nowadays. And so their model, a little bit, or very, very not structured, but very intentional. The guys calling the shots would tell you, here's what you're going to do. So Denver was an analyst role in the development group. It actually pretty quickly disbanded after the first year. What they were trying to do was pursue build-to-suits from Denver in the regions. And so they divided up the team. There were 4 like build-to-suit coordinator guys, kind of senior, a VP level person. They would have a construction management type lead, an analyst, and literally an administrative assistant. And so they divided out the country in quadrants, regions. And I was tasked with the Midwest region to help pursue build-to-suits with a guy who really belonged in Chicago, or was from Chicago. When they disband the group, he moves back to Chicago. He's my first boss, and he's one of the longest serving Prologis guys. I think he has since retired. I've lost track of him a little bit, but a lot of people know him. Bob Critt was one of the very first Prologis employees and a longtime Chicago guy. So he moves back to Chicago. I stay in Denver, still kind of like having no discernible skills, and we're now, Prologis is starting to raise money on Wall Street. They're a publicly traded REIT already at the time, and we're acquiring a lot of assets. They're starting to really push the envelope on acquiring in key markets that they've chosen. And so I'm just an analyst underwriting my eyeballs out, Argus models till 10 o'clock at night. And it was very much investment banker type mindset or mentality. Like, you were working until 9, you were working until it was done.
Would you get in at like 7 or like at 9? Or no, you're like going
8:30, 8. I mean, and your associate, the guy or gal that you reported to, and then their boss, which would, I guess, be a VP type, were grinders. I mean, just grinders. We were all pretty young.
Were you getting paid a lot for, like, investment bankers get paid, like, they were getting like $100,000 to work hours like that? But
I do remember comparing out of UT undergrad that my offer for Security Capital Industrial Trust was about 10% more than anyone else I knew. And I thought I just chalked that up to my competitiveness. I'm like, but no, it was not like 50% more, and it wasn't New York, and also the cost of living didn't require that sort of thing. So, but the culture was just, you're going to grind. But it was a good culture. It was a healthy one. It taught you work is just that. And
was it Trammell Crow set up with like all open space and cubicles and stuff?
Cubes.
Yeah, it was all cubes.
Yeah. We turned down some Ivy Leaguers, some Harvard guys would come through interviewing, and they would sort of just, have that air of significance, because they made it through Harvard, that they wanted an office. And, our leadership was like, you're not getting one. Do you see the CEO's office over there? Like, yeah, he gets an office. It was just, the culture was just, you're going to be in a cube. You're going to work. And, but the culture was that of a healthy camaraderie. I mean, I still have some of my best friends in the business. We started, in that same season. And when we grinded, and what you realize very quickly in talking to some of the other guys, and sort of that reference to Crow, was you're not really an asset to us unless you know how to lease space, unless you know how to put deals together in a marketplace. You need to know a marketplace. I did everything from Denver. I never worked a second in Denver. I didn't know anything about the market. And so as an analyst talking to or working on acquisitions, you start to work with all the market officers over a period of time, and you kind of get to sense who these folks are and what they're all about, and frankly, who are the good ones and who are the more like work style good ones. They were all very talented, but like, who are these folks?
Who's your cultural fit for Ryan?
Bingo. And I also gave 5 minutes thought to a market I'd want to be in and grow in.
Yeah.
And so it was pretty quickly like, even back then, your corporate users, if you wanted to roll out a distribution network of a product type across the coast, you needed to be in 3 to 5 markets, regional distribution center markets.
Atlanta, Chicago, Dallas,
Bingo.
New York, LA.
Bingo. And so now it's just, all right, I need to do this. And they sort of push it towards the idea. I'm not going to be able to choose my moment or choose my shot, but I only probably going to have one. And it just sort of worked out. Atlanta opens up. I'm like, go. Atlanta's a big market. I know what I knew was that the fellow that ran the market was a guy named Frank Fallon. He's like,
yeah, I know his
CBRE
son.
Capital Partners. His son works with him now.
Yeah.
His son, one of his two boys, he has 2 boys, or 3. He has 3 boys. 2 of them, I believe, are in the business. One of them worked for Link for a minute, and my wife babysat all of them.
Really?
After we got to Atlanta.
That's funny.
So I moved to Atlanta. I spent 5 years there, kind of walk in the door as low man on the totem pole leasing guy, walk out as kind of senior leasing guy. And then in that moment, it was just unique. The role to be in at Prologis, if you weren't in like capital markets and didn't want to be the CEO, was market officer. That was sort of the holy grail, at least for me, and ambitions wise. So.
And this is 2004 or 5 or? Yeah,
let's see. It's exactly what it is. I moved to Atlanta in '99. I leave in '04, and I take the position of the quote market officer in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
Which I had been to this many times. Never done there. It was in our region, so I kind of knew the folks that were running it, and I kind of knew what made it work because you were on regional calls, you hear all this stuff. But I didn't know. I'd never been there. And but recall what I was saying earlier about moving every year.
Yeah, Denver, Atlanta,
but even childhood, like every year moving house to house. I'm like, fuck it, let's go to Charlotte. It's more money. I'm going to be the market officer, meaning I answer to a regional person and call the shots. And we kill it. Market's flying. We get to Charlotte. We had a great...
I mean, those were just like incredible years, right? 04 to 6, 7.
Up and to the right. Everything was up and to the right. Parabolic kind of movement. We grow the portfolio, almost double the portfolio via acquisitions and development. I'm working with farm and landowners, sitting at their kitchen table in their ranch houses, farmhouses, buying land, and we're going to turn it into big giant industrial parks. Which they didn't like, but we did. And I really, really, really learned the business there and sort of feel like I kind of come into my own. Fast forward there, I kind of, Charlotte's it's a mini Atlanta. There's some companies that are starting to look there. There's some institutional capital starting to look there. From a regional distribution standpoint, it's a stepchild to Atlanta. And so I kind of realized, all right, I probably either am going back to Atlanta, or I need to get somewhere if I want to sort of move up again or move out again.
Major market.
And so I start talking to, I'll leave the companies unnamed, but some big companies back in Atlanta that I'd had occasion to interact with when I was there. And I'm talking to another big group in Charlotte. And I'm about to give notice to go do one of these things. And our Prologis CEO calls me. And he messages to someone else and says, "Hey, don't let him do anything for 24 hours. I've got something I'm working on." He calls me and he's like, "I think I hear what you're working on. I think we like you. I think we've put a lot of investment in you. I'd rather you hear me out on this opportunity. I don't want you to leave. Even if you don't want to do it, I want you to think about it. Take the weekend." He was real thoughtful, considerate. call me back personally and tell me no if you don't want to do it, which was like, oh my gosh, like you can't tell the CEO no, right? He's the CEO. He's like, so here it is. I want you to move to Austin, Texas. We've just purchased this company called Keathely. We're trying to figure it out. Keathely has a both industrial land development, like build-a-suit type inspect development team, and they have a work on redevelopment of like brownfield assets team, because they were originally like the railroad, they were the spinoff of the Santa Fe Railroad Company, and so they ended up with just some tremendous infill land assets across the West Coast mainly, but they'd taken their expertise and they'd negotiated with the city of Austin to become the developer, what they call master developer of the city of Austin's old airport. So Austin's gone through a massive transition at this moment. It has its in-town airport, literally 700 acres across the street from the University of Texas, and moves its airport out to an old Air Force base east of Austin, which is the airport you fly into today.
Yeah.
And you'll fly into
Thursday.
Yeah. ABIA. But they have
great airport.
Cool airport. There'll be live music Thursday night. There's always a guy playing a guitar. We've tackled this thing. We don't really know what it's all about, but we need a guy. Kind of literally, he's like, we have 2 million square feet of industrial space there. We need a company guy to go help us figure out this Keathely monstrosity. What do you say? His name's Jeff Schwartz, and he's since passed, but and I actually know him pretty well because I interviewed with him when I interviewed for that very, very first Denver position.
And did he sit in Denver
he
the
sat
whole
in Denver
time?
at
So you
that
were kind of
time.
there as an analyst and
Right.
knew him.
That's right. He's not, when I hired on, he was like boss's boss. He was like a managing director. I'm like, Jeff, you had me at Austin, dude. I don't even care what you need me to do. I'm going to Austin. Like, let's go. And so it's just another one of those instances where I think, again, that wild ass upbringing kind of gave me that courage to just take the next step. Just go. It's going to work itself out. And wife and I raised our family in Austin. We've been in Austin coming on 20 years. And it's a pretty great place to be.
Pretty great.
Yeah.
I've mentioned to my ex-wife many of times if she wants to move there, but she doesn't.
Yeah.
I would in a heartbeat.
It's great.
Wow, that's awesome. So then you handled that then? Did you get them integrated into the Prologis?
Yeah, it was an animal. It was a monster. The good news, bad news is we were 700 acres of infill land in the city of Austin was as good as you can imagine it was going to be. It was fantastic. What wasn't fantastic was I got there in 2006. So early 2006, all of 7 and part of 8 were ripping. We put there's the hospital, the sort of predominant hospital in the whole community decides to put its brand new flagship children's hospital in the middle of the project. UT comes knocking and wants 14-acre parcel for just R&D and future development because you're literally across the highway from UT. Single-family tract home development stuff was happening, not by me, one of the other guys on the team. And we're in it, but it's a vertical mixed use, very much like pedestrian-oriented, traditional neighborhood development, which is to say like alley loaded. It was this anathema to Texas development, but it was supposed to be we were trying to build a San Francisco in downtown Austin, which is really, really hard. And then it was impossible when you hit the GFC, great financial crisis. We hit the wall. It's a it's a horizontal land development project, which just costs enormous sums of capital to even bring we demolished hangars and runways and different elements of a working airport to then bring it back to a vertical development. And
you're also not doing industrial. So
I'm like doing industrial like at night because like we have 2 million square feet. It's sort of like my half day job that we're leasing and managing and operating, and we've got in-house leasing and in-house property management and all the things.
Because Prologis I don't feel like they would do that now. They would just sell that land or do industrial, right?
Well, this was, so the deal was it was effectively, not in name, but effectively a joint venture with the city of Austin. Okay. It was their land.
Yeah.
You were just the developer. Now, they didn't know their ass from their elbow about what to do. They had a view and a vision on what it was going to be, but they're city, they're not developers. And so you did everything sort of at their leisure. You had, if you'd vet with them weekly. Okay, XYZ company called and they want to take a look at this. Movie studios called and they want to be in this sort of quadrant of the project. And we had some wild deals that we were chasing at the time. But GFC hits, slows everything down. It's just not a place where you're going to go spend a lot of capital. Prologis is like, we are not spending money on that.
They just got crushed. Everyone did, but their stock price went to almost nothing, right?
Bingo. Their stock price goes from 70 something to $2.
That would be a good thing to buy with wedding money.
Oh my gosh.
$2 Prologis.
I'll tell you what, the only thing I did do right in that whole instance was I go online one day and sell off my 401k, which is all the matching and all the 401k of 13 years. I've been there 13 years at this point. I sell it all at like $69.
Really? Wow.
Now, every warrant and option I ever had expired worthless, which was also painful. And to add insult to injury, they actually said, thank you very much. We don't need you anymore. So I get let go along with really pretty much substantially the whole Keathely team. Oh, yeah. Walked out. I think they gave us 6 months notice, and they gave us a great severance.
Yeah, it was you and like 70% of the staff. I mean, lots of all over the country, right?
All over the country.
It had massive layoffs. I remember that.
They sold all of Asia in a quarter. They built it for 7 or 8, 9 years. They sold it all in a quarter. I mean, everything was just getting really rocked in the financial markets. And so anyway, I get laid off. I get, again, a severance, and I know that it's coming. And so I'm kind of putting my head together about what I'm going to do. And ultimately, me and one of the guys from Keathely plus another friend decide we're just going to become the brokerage function of the project. They can't pay us unless something happens, unless a deal transacts, but no one knows more about this business. We can go do all the other things in the world that we thought we would be great at, and we have this really great customer, this client of the airport's redevelopment project. So we did that. We tried to do that for 2 years. Those two guys are still in business. They still have a very, very successful business in Austin, and it is not what you know, it is who you know. And so the former never came over to Prologis. When Keathely sold to Prologis, there was a gentleman who's the CEO of Keathely, and he's very smart, very seasoned, decides he is not going to cross over that threshold to move over to Prologis and work for, a totally different board, a totally different concept in a business that, wasn't his. And so he leaves. Well, Blackstone enters the room and decides they would like to buy industrial. They start thinking clearly about, hey, this logistics movement is real. They'd like to start to deploy capital into the asset class, and they do so in mass. And their very first transaction is a $1 billion transaction, which doesn't sound like much now, but it was monstrous then. They buy $1 billion of Prologis of real estate directly from Prologis. They name a CEO to operate the business, because Blackstone's great at a lot of things, but sort of operating real estate assets is clearly not their forte. Yeah. So wisely, they hire a bunch of people that can. The CEO's named. He is the former CEO of Keathely. Believe it or not, truth be told, I don't know him. He doesn't come across to Prologis. I never had occasion to meet him. I've heard all about him. I'm working on an asset that his team and his company were chasing for years, this redevelopment of the city of Austin's airport. He's named CEO. He starts putting together his org chart. I'm going to operate $1 billion of real estate across the United States. And he, works through his sort of Rolodex, and he's like, I need a guy in Texas. So he calls his former, or the fellow that used to report to him on the Keathely project, who's my boss 2 years prior, because we've been out on our own trying to do this thing for 2 years. We give it a go. He's like, I need a guy, and I need him to not say no, and I need him to know how to play, how to run industrial real estate at a high level, because it's Blackstone. They've just bought $1 billion, and I think they're going to buy more. And so,
yes, they were.
So he calls that fella. He calls me, my boss is Greg Weaver. Greg calls me and says, "Hey, man, Tim Bowden is going to call you, and I know who he is. I've never met him, but I know who he is by name, and he's going to offer you a job to run Texas for basically Blackstone's, new industrial affiliate." And I'm like, he's like, seriously, Ryan, do not fucking waste his time if you're not going to say yes. Because he knew we'd hung out our shingle. He knew we were trying to do our own business. And I'm like, Greg, we've been at this commercial real estate new business thing for 2 years, and I made $25,000. I'm not very good at it.
Good thing you sold that stock.
Good thing we sold that stock. And so he calls me, and boom, off to the races. Encore is formed. I'm the fourth employee hired at Encore. Encore, we grow it to $8 billion in value. Sell it to GLP. That's where we made GLP. Sold it in 2011, 12, 13, 14. Sold it late 14, early 15. And then grow that portfolio to about 18 billion. And Blackstone buys it all back, which is just wild. And so that's called Link.
What's Link?
And that's why we're
here. We are.
That's it.
I love Link.
Yeah, I love Link.
I love you, man.
I love you.
What a awesome story. I know I have a lot of industrial real estate people listen to this podcast, but I just salivate hearing a story like that of all of those. I mean, you just connected these behemoths in the industry that just changed the whole industry from an ownership developer standpoint. That's wild that you just rode that all the way through.
Yeah.
So
just rode it. Still riding it.
Yeah, you are. So am I.
Yeah, we are.
So what advice would you give to your younger self?
Yeah, that's a good one. And I was hoping you were going to miss that or forget that question.
Mm-hmm.
I will take that question this direction. And not because I'm arrogant, whatever. But I don't know that I would have done one thing different than I did. I really can't find distance between. And by the way, I just showed up and God did the rest. I mean, I'm being honest. Just showed up and God did the rest. If I thought I could take 1 ounce of credit for any of that, you should have me off your porch. I'm not a good guy. But I would tell people, what I would tell is, so I'd take that question this way. I'd tell young people, take yourself seriously. I actually heard some of your guests say, don't take yourself as seriously. Don't be so hard on yourself. Don't be so driven. And I would say, what I would say is, get serious about something. That's what I'd tell young people. Get serious about something. Don't be rude. Don't be short. Don't be so serious that you stress yourself out, heart attack. But get serious about something and go. I listen to a lot of podcasts, yours included, and the ones I like the most are the guys or podcasts that interview founders, guys and gals that did something really significant and altered the business landscape or whatever landscape they're in. Those guys probably weren't fucking off on Friday night.
No.
Those guys and gals probably weren't, trying to. They weren't focused on just tangible. What's the word? Items like what they wear and how they looked, and they were serious about what they were passionate about. And that's just what I tell young people. Get serious about something and go. And don't worry 1 minute about what people think about you. Just go and go hard. I think that's good advice.
I think it's great advice. I think I've always taken whatever I was doing very seriously. And at one point, that was partying. And I mean, I took it seriously. I was. I mean, it was wild. But I loved partying. I loved having parties and throwing parties and going to parties. Now, totally opposite. Oh, dessert's coming. People are ordering espresso martinis. I'm going to bed. I'm going to wake up at 4 and meditate and listen to audiobooks or read a book or something. So it was always football and then the band and then partying really became my priority. And then real estate after I quit drinking. And that I don't know. That's when I got really serious about doing my job and just like poured myself into it.
Yeah.
And but all of those different phases, I look back and I went through like a Iron Man phase, and like that takes being serious about it. But I'm proud of myself based on your comment. Like I really have taken shit seriously from the get-go. Not always the wisest things to take seriously, but I think that's the answer, right? Is to stay focused, like to be really focused on something until you achieve the outcome you're looking to achieve. And that's a problem I see with a lot of young people I talk to, is lack of just focus, or the like wanting to have this perfect scenario to come about to do something when really it's just doesn't work like that. You got to just say, I'm going to do this, and then you go do it. Do it and take it fucking seriously.
Take it serious, yeah. Step out there and just, I think calculated. I think you individually, one of us, us individually, are the best estimators of risk. And if you've understood the risk, right, because you're in an industry that only you and people like you know about it, right? You know what risk level you're willing to tolerate, but you also know what true risk you're really taking. And if you've underwritten it and know the risk that you're taking, I tell young people this all the time: nephews, nieces, friends, kids. So if you know and you've underwritten that risk, talk yourself into it. Don't talk yourself out of it. Find out why it will work. Don't find out why it won't work. Yeah. Because you'll talk yourself out of anything. And we are, generally speaking, most of us are risk-averse type humans. So, I don't know. Get serious about something. Go to work. And don't look up. Play. Basketball coaches used to tell us this all the time. If you work your ass off and you play as hard as you can play, when you look up at the scoreboard at the end of the game, you will have won. And they were right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you're serious, people take you seriously.
That's so true. Doors open when they think about it. If someone's going to invest money with you or back you or support you or consider your product or your service or your offering, if you're serious and they know you're not dicking off on Friday night, people want to be around people that are successful, and the doors open when you're in that mode.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about the God thing. Was God always, were you always a believer in God, or did that come about?
That's a great question. Totally credit my mom with that. She would drag us to Episcopal church across the street from our high school long before I was in high school. In Episcopal church, if no one ever's been in one, it's like Catholic light. It's the same Sunday is going to happen. Same sort of service is going to happen this Sunday to the next one, and flip the calendar a year from now, it's the same thing. So it's pretty structured, pretty regimented. It's, in my estimation or observation, it's pretty hard to find. There's a reverence for God there because the stained glass windows and the peaked ceilings are all, they don't build these things like for fun. You can tell there's some higher power there, but I didn't probably have a respectful relationship with God, Jesus, in that environment. But I knew that you should. I knew that you needed that.
Yeah.
In your life, and so that was the exposure. I'd say the relationship really opened up. My relationship with Jesus Christ opened up when I was probably after I was married, and probably at some point I realized I'm the man of this house, just she and I, but I'm going to hopefully one day, God willing, have kids. And by golly, my kids are going to know Jesus. They're going to know who that is. And that is going to be thought of and spoken of and openly considered in our home. And so that it was adulthood really before I really felt like I had that comfort. I had that guiding sort of presence in my life, but I always knew there was a force there. I knew there was a God there. I didn't know him personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Have you ever had a mystical experience?
I've had I've had one 100% for sure. I've had a second one that feels, honestly, I'll let you know something, that it feels like it's sort of happening kind of real time, not like as we sit here today, but
Might be.
in this window of time. The first one was, I think I mentioned, at some point we're going back and forth through the court system, and we've got to, at some point we're old enough for the judge tells us to decide who you're going to live with as a parent, as a child. And I remember this. We're at my mother's house, whatever, there for, I can't remember if it was a weekend or a time period we lived there or something. And I am praying about it. I'm very intentional about, because I don't know what to do. I know the right answer is to go live at my dad's house for the school and the friend network, and it just financially he was better off than my mom. There was just a lot of reasons to sort of want to do that, and but I didn't want to do it. It wasn't the right healthy thing. It wasn't the best decision. So I remember just sort of being brought out of, I'm lying in bed. I don't remember what time of night. It's late, super late. And I just remember sort of sitting up in my bed unwillingly. And the answer is just given to me. It's like, you need to move back in with your dad. You need to move to your dad's home. And it was clear as the day is long. And I'm sort of in this weird, powerless position. I'm sitting up in my bed, and I don't feel like I've sat up. It's just, I've been raised up. Is that way to say that? The next day or the next morning, I kind of go to my sister. She's there too, and I say, hey, I kind of think I know what we should do. I don't know where you are on this, because we were kind of both thinking about it, and we were going to be together, whatever we were going to do. And I said, I think I know what we're going to do. And she goes, I do too. And she says, we're going to move back in with my dad. And she goes, and she kind of goes, it just sort of occurs to me last night. And then I tell her what happened to me. And we were like, okay, well, then that's the answer.
Wow.
That's pretty wild.
That is.
Yeah. The second one is different. But it feels very profound. At some point in junior college, when I'm deciding I'm going to study, and I'm deciding I'm going to maybe actually use the brain I've been given, one of the things I had to do, or you had to do in biology, your class was biology, I just kind of skated by academically. If it was a multiple choice test, I could get by. I'm going to make a B. If I get lucky, if it's an easy test, I'm going to make an A. If it's hard, I'm going to make a C. But I'm going to get by. I was never going to fail. I showed up to class. But at some point, I got to learn in this particular test, and the professor tells us it's not going to be multiple choice. You're going to have to write out and describe photosynthesis. You're going to have to know it. And so my whole life, I'd have been like, I'll get close. I can get a C or a B out of that. I don't need to really know that. What's the point? And I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to know that, and I'm going to write it down, and I'm going to transpose that on the test, and I freaking nail it. Right? I get it right. I commit myself to learn it, and I nail it. And that's not mystical. That's just hard work and diligence, putting your mind towards something. But the other day, I'm reading a book, and the whole process of photosynthesis is in the book. And you're going to ask me that, and I'm maybe jumping ahead. Kind of, what are you reading lately? But there was just something in that book that I was reading, and that I hadn't thought about that moment 30 years, and I read that photosynthesis. It was the exact same image of the process. It's just a chemical process that I'd had as a book.
That was really the moment you got serious.
And it was the moment I got serious about academics, and it was a turning point in my life. I wouldn't have been where I'm at if I hadn't gotten serious. And so I read it the other day, and I'll stop there, but I will.
You can tell me now.
It hit me hard.
What book is it?
So it's a crazy subject matter, but I bought 3 books recently by a guy named Joel Salatin. And it's about farming. It's a wild book. It's a wild rabbit trail that I'm kind of sort of on, but it's just about farming. It's about food. It's about raising food. It's about cattle, chicken, meat products, different. And I've just been thinking a lot about that lately. As bizarre as that sounds, I've been thinking a whole lot about that lately. And it just lifted up off the page. I was like, holy smokes. it was just a 30-year time span. Just was like, here, you needed to know that then, and you need to know that now.
Yeah.
So I don't know where it's going, and I'll give you a little bit more, but it was super intentional. It felt on the order of mystical.
It sounds like it.
Yeah. Pretty wild.
What's your favorite restaurant in Austin?
I'm not a foodie. My friends, that know me well, know I'm not a foodie. I'm pretty agreeable about where we go as long as it's not Chinese food, Indian food.
Do you eat at home most of the time?
My wife cooks a lot.
Yeah.
We do eat at home a lot, and I struggle. I've been to some really great restaurants. You're in my industry, affords us some pretty amazing opportunities to be in some pretty great places.
I say I eat at fancy restaurants for a living, basically.
Literally, for a living.
We go to them all the time. Oh man, and Telluride, Colorado's got.
Dude,
where did we go last night? All Reds.
All Reds. That elk tenderloin last night was stunning.
So good.
But I've been to a lot of great places, and you'll ask me 6 weeks later what restaurant to go to in that town. I'm on a blank sheet of paper. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just totally lost on me, which is really sad because there's really great restaurants in Austin.
Yeah, there are.
Probably my favorite restaurant is the most out of the way Mexican food joint that we go to every Sunday night as a family. It's called Vaqueros.
Okay.
I love Vaqueros. It's on 360. You would, as most people who are somewhat, interested in food and have a discerning taste, palate for Mexican food, even, you'd be like, this is not that great of Mexican food.
But it's just down the middle of the fairway, Tex-Mex.
That's what it is.
I love a place like
Love
that.
it.
There's a place called El Vecino in my neighborhood, and any podcast guest from my neighborhood says El Vecino.
Oh, really?
So good.
Not a foodie, so yeah.
We don't judge Tex-Mex here at Truckin On. So what book do you recommend? The farming book, or do you have another book that was a big life changer for you?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Are you a reader?
I am a reader.
Yeah.
I am a reader. That same year where I decided I was going to read, or rather study and get serious, I read, in addition to taking coursework, literally that semester I took 21 hours and I read 10 books. So I just kind of got really, really focused about it. I've tapered off since then. I love podcasts. A very, very, very interesting book that completely threw a 180 on my wife and I's sort of mindset on finances. You heard the book Die with Zero? Yeah,
I've heard of it. I haven't read it.
I'm going to butcher the guy's name. I'm not going to remember it. Bill something or other. I believe he's an Austin guy. It's not why I read it. I don't know him. I know people that know him. Die with Zero. The concept's exactly what you think it is. And it's basically most folks, work and hard and save and earn and put their money away, and they die with way more money than they needed. Not most folks, but a whole echelon of civilization lives pretty high and lives pretty well and dies with a whole lot more money than they need. And what's the tragic part of that is, let's say your parents had that sort of opportunity for you and they had money to give you, and they die in their 80s and they give you that money when you're in your 60s.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't really do anything for you. It didn't change your direction or your life.
Right.
Not my situation presently, but it resonated with me that, you know what, you might want to make more meaningful impact to people, be it a philanthropy if you have no children, or of course children if you have them. You could probably make a whole lot more meaningful impact on their life at better timed intervals, which turns out to be younger.
Yeah.
Which puts risk on the plate of a earner, someone in the industry or in industry, to say, all right, I'm going to have to part with some of this money, but money at a 20-year-old's life, certain sums of money at a 20-year-old's life, is way more impactful than it is at 50 or 60.
For sure.
And that was just a complete 180 to my head and my...
I'm just going to save up, and then whenever I die, then my kids will get the money. But yeah.
Which is what your will says, unless you change it, by the way, unless you make it different. So that Die with Zero was something my wife and I, friends of hers, read it, and we actually listened to it books on tape because we wanted to read it together. But she's not that big of a reader. But that one changed my mind.
That's cool.
A lot of things.
I want to read that. I've heard that mentioned a lot.
Yeah.
I think on podcasts, it's I've heard people talk about it.
Yeah.
What about a quote?
Oh man, I've got a quote that I love. General George S. Patton. Let's just call him George Patton. If you tell people where to go, but not how to get there, you'll be amazed at the results.
That's great.
And I like that because I'm now in a position of, whatever, management, leadership, whatever, at our company. And I will not tell you how to do. So I'll tell you the first time. I'll tell you the second time. I'll teach you how to do it. But when it's now your opportunity to do the thing or complete the component of the business that you're now tasked with doing, hey man, you're smart. You put you got here.
Yeah.
You got through college. We don't hire.
Figure
folks.
it out.
And I just won't tell you how. I'll give you advice. I'll role play with you. I think the guys and gals that I work with and the market officers that I now lead I think they tell you, yeah, he loves to sort of role play and shoot holes in what we're saying or thinking, or saying, great, you're on the right track, go. I'm not. I lead from the rear. I'm not going to get in front of you. I'm not going to fight your fight. I'm not going to take that responsibility from you, because only you can make those decisions in that moment and make those tiny little pivotal changes. In our world, it sounds like negotiations, right?
Yeah.
I cannot take the energy and intelligence out of that process and direct it with any part of my being and us get to where we need to get to. I mean, our guys are negotiating big deals worth a lot of money and a lot of capital at risk. They got to do it. So I just tell them, here's where we're going. This is the goal of this portfolio or this asset or this market. You can go over the log, you can go over the house, you can go under the, just get us there. And then it's worked really well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Tony Robbins is big on that, like mapping it out, like where do you want to go?
Yeah.
And how you get there is going to change. There's very few straight paths to a destination in the world of manifesting.
You think about General Patton, we're going to take that hill. See you there. I mean, I can't tell you what you might encounter here and there, or how many guys got shot, or how many,
Yeah.
It's
Just
good
go
advice.
take the hill.
Take the hill. See you at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
What else?
Man.
I think we covered an amazing story. Thanks for sharing everything.
Yeah.
Where do people track you down?
You just got to have my cell phone number. I'm not super duper on the social media. I actually deleted. This is breaking news. I deleted X, Twitter, 2 nights ago off my phone, and I'm a Elon, Twitter, X fan.
I don't use X at all, so
really?
It's just I never use Twitter. I never use anything. I use Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, but never Twitter. Never got into it.
Yeah, I tell you, it's like I sort of alluded to it very vaguely, but I need to sort of get focused about some things.
Yeah.
And it's just I can't control how many bombs we're sending to Iran, or what Israel does tomorrow, or what tariffs or this or and I just needed to sort of mentally, emotionally, professionally, spiritually kind of get locked in on some things that I just deleted it. And so I don't know, that's just a fun thing to think about, and I've already found that I have a little bit more free time
And less stress and
focus.
I love I think I quit watching the news for the most part when Trump election number 1 happened, and then when COVID happened, I totally cut out the news from my life.
Yeah.
And it's like the AI knows that I do not want to see the news, and they don't send it to me, and I don't see it. If I get on Facebook, I'll see some people like bitching and complaining about it, and I deleted Facebook for many years, but I have such a community on there of old friends that are not on Instagram. But Instagram is my main thing because you decide who you follow.
Right,
so,
of course.
And then I just follow like motivational speakers, spiritual things, yoga things, Tony Robbins, and all of that. And then but I miss things like concerts or if something's going
Yeah,
on. Like
dude,
I had
yeah.
no idea because I'm just like not looking at the paper at all. But I certainly don't watch the news. And I read the Wall Street Journal logistics report each day.
Same. I get that email. Yeah.
I get that email, and that's all I read.
That's funny.
And
Yeah.
it's a wonderful way to live.
Yeah. It is a great way to
I'm
live.
never going back.
I won't say never. Never's a long time, but I'm
True.
currently not on any social media platforms, and I'm kind of digging it. So,
Cool, man.
all right, brother.
Well, Ryan Keathley, my brother, thanks for trucking on.
Yeah, Ward, this has been a blast. Thank you for having me, and really wish your show the best of luck. So,
Thanks. Recorded right here in beautiful Telluride, Colorado.
boom.
Amazing. Peace.